Today I'm going to address a really common problem on these BMW Z3s. You've all seen my Z3 before. It's a 2002 3.0i. And the problem that every single one of these cars has is that seatbelt bracket ends up snapping. So I'm going to go over to the passenger side just for a minute to show you what these look like when they snap. So it's just the way that the seatbelt threads through there. It puts a lot of pressure on this plastic, and even though the plastic is kind of thick, you can see that there's just no way around this. This is going to snap. I tried putting some Velcro there, and I found some methods that actually held for a while, but they look like crap. So here we are. You can see I used a razor blade to slit down the middle of there, and I had to cut through all of the thread that was sewn through there to hold it in place. And now that the old one's out, here's the new one. So it comes with the backing plate, and it comes with the new guide, and it comes with two little metal brackets that hold the guide to that backing plate once the backing plate is sewn in. So what I'm going to have to do is get that all sewn up and then push my new seatbelt guide in. So I've super glued, gorilla glued the brackets to the back of the little backing plate. And if they stay in place right there, like I said, I'll sew it all up. Then I'll push the posts on through the other side, and hopefully I'll be all done. That would be really great, and we'll see if it works. So yeah, I'll have to sew up that area that I sliced through, and for that I've got this leatherworking kit. Now it's got all types of leatherworking tools and thread and everything that I don't know how to use yet. But the piece that I really am concerned about here is, first of all, this awl, so I can punch holes where I need to, and that'll make sewing easier. And then it comes with some special leather needles, and I'm mainly concerned about this curved one because that'll let me sew from the front without having to try and get through to the back. So I've started my thread here, and I'm just going to leave it hanging there. Then once I get everything lined up, I can just use one hand to hold everything firmly, and then I'll sew through the backing plate and the leather at the same time, and then hopefully that'll hold in place and I'll be good to go. And I really don't know if I'll be able to push that hard enough to get through there, but we'll see. So I had to use some rubber gloves here to even grip that little tiny slippery needle, but with the gloves on I'm able to get a nice grip, and you can see I can get it through even that pretty thick leather. So now it's just a matter of lining it up. And I'm going to need two hands here in a second, but I'm going to go ahead and get started with sewing through it all. Alright, here we are halfway through, and the sewing's going pretty well. Now remember, I don't have to worry about how this looks because it's all going to be hidden behind the seatbelt guide. So I'm just concerned about how sturdy it is. But now's a good time to stop and go ahead and try and get that top post through that hole. If it holds tightly, I'm good to go. But if it doesn't, I'm going to have to rethink this whole thing. Well, that didn't work. So I'm going to have to take out the entire seat and take off that leather piece. So I've got my 13mm socket, and that's going to be used on the 13mm nuts, one on each rail on the front of the seat, and my 16mm socket which is going to be used on the 2 bolts on the rails at the back of the seat. So you have to move the seat all the way back to get the front ones and all the way forward to get to the back ones. And then the seat can be popped right out. And then all you've got is this one big connector for all of the power controls on the seats. And that has a big thick cable that runs below the carpet into the floorboard of the car. So the only way to really do this right is to get that seat out of the car and then get the leather covering off of the seat. And then you can see here, once that was done, it was just easy to slip those posts through the holes, get those metal brackets on, and we're all good. So let's talk about how do you get that leather cover off and then back on the seat. So you've got some guides here in the form of these Velcro strips, and when you get those lined up, you know you're in the right spot. So let's take a second here to look at how that seatbelt guide looks when it's in the right spot. I think it looks pretty good, just like it did when I first bought the car. So as I put things on, I'll show you exactly how I got it off as well. You can see here that there are 3 seams going down the seat across it, and each of those seams has a metal wire going across it. Now that metal wire has to be grabbed and hooked into these little metal rings, and there are 2 or 3 rings down each seam, and in each of those spots you've got to reach through the metal wire, pull that little metal ring up through it, and then hook it, and then you're all good to go. Then you move on down to the next seam, same thing there, and I've already got them all hooked here in the video. And what I used to do that was these needle nose, big long pair of forceps. You'll see those in a lot of my videos. And of course this little hooked pick tool in order to grab those tiny little parts. And actually I've got one more seam to go, and then I'll get the seat back in the car and we'll go from there. So go ahead and take a look here at those 3 seams I was talking about. I think my new seatbelt bracket looks pretty good. So we've got the top seam, we've got the middle seam, and each of those seams has 3 or 2 hooks. And once those are connected, then this little flap just pokes through the back of the seat, and you just pull everything tight. So there's a zipper around the back here, and we'll talk about that in a second, because there's no little pull tab on there. So I'll show you how to get that zipper secured. But before that, we've got to go ahead and put in the back of the headrest. And once everything else is in place, you've got to poke this up through the leather, because the leather has to hold it in place while you get the rest done. And then I'll show you how to secure it once you have it in place. So I needed 2 hands to do this, but you can see at the bottom of that plastic piece there's some fingers. There's 2 that go on the back of that wire support, and then there's 1 that goes in front of it. And once all of those are in place, then you're done. So now let's talk about the zipper. As I said, there's no little pull tab on it. So now we're back to my little pick tool, and there's a metal bracket under there. Keep in mind, because we'll have to address that in a second. But for now, let's go ahead and zip it down, and I'm using my little hooked pick tool again, and we'll get that pulled all the way down. And gonna need 2 hands for that, so I'll be right back. Okay, so with the cover all in place, let's talk about that metal bracket that I mentioned before. So that metal bracket has 2 holes in it, and then the seat covering has 2 holes, and that is all for your trigger for your door side airbags. Now all you do is push that little plastic pin in place and it pops closed and you're all set there. Then under the seat you've got your connectors for your heated seats and all your controls, so you secure that down. And now all you've got to do is put those 4 bolts back in. So in the front you've got your 2 nuts, in the back you got your 2 bolts. That's a 13 in the front, a 16 in the back, and you just get those 4 things back in place and you're pretty much all done. Remember, you screwed it all the way up to get to the back ones and then all the way back to get to the front ones, and here we are, we're all done. My seat belt's in its correct spot, the seats all secured and tightened down. I'm going to take it back out in order to detail the car and clean that carpet, but as far as this work is done, that's all there's to it. Oh, you can see on the back of the seat there's a plastic cover I didn't show, but that just snaps into place and there's nothing to it. And you can see my seat goes back and forth as it should on its rails. And we are all set, we're good to go. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed the video, hope you found this useful. If so, go ahead and hit the like button. If you like this kind of content, go ahead and hit subscribe and you'll get to see more. And as always, thanks for watching.